Giza Plateau, Egypt. The Great Pyramid is arguably the most enigmatic structure on the face of the earth. It is the only surviving wonder of the ancient world and has inspired endless speculation about how it was built and its purpose. Ever since the first studies of the Great Pyramid in Egypt were made, researchers have been amazed at the mathematical knowledge encoded into the Great Pyramid. The measurements used in it, even the placement of the Great Pyramid, have aroused great interest among Egyptologists. The Great Pyramid is aligned to within 360th of a degree up north, a more accurate alignment than any other structure on Earth. When you look at the Great Pyramid's alignment, it's aligned very, very close to true north. Even more interesting is to think about tracking back in time because the Earth's axis has been shifting slowly. It's what we call processes. So if there's been a shift in that alignment, it could be even more accurately aligned to the north in the past when they built it. The Great Pyramid is not only perfectly aligned with the cardinal points, but its placement on the Earth is also seemingly intentional. If you pass a great circle from the Great Pyramid through its cardinal and its ordinal directions, you find that these circles will pass through more land mass of the Earth than any other location on Earth. The Great Pyramid is located at the center of the world's landmass. Since an accurate survey of the Great Pyramid in 1925, mathematicians and researchers have discovered even more profound connections relating to geodetic information or information about the measurement and representation of the Earth encoded in its design. The Great Pyramid was built with a level of technological sophistication far over anything we have today. They don't use the inch as we usually have it in the English system. It's the cubit, and what's interesting about this cubit is that it is precisely 1/25 millionth of the polar diameter of the Earth, meaning the distance from the North Pole to the South Pole of the Earth. Chop it up into 25 million pieces. There's your cubit. It's perfect. If you take the length of the Great Pyramid at its mean socket level, which is the corners of the actual building, it translates into 365.24 pyramid cubits, which happens to be the Earth's radius down to a quarter. The measurements of the length and width of the perimeter of the Great Pyramid correspond to an exact fraction of both the latitude and longitude measurements at the equator. Scaled up, this means the Great Pyramid directly corresponds to the circumference of the equator and the measurement from the equator to the pole, making it a scale model of the Northern Hemisphere. Recently, using satellite technology, researchers have realized yet another advanced formula encoded in the design. If you take the location of the Great Pyramid as a coordinate, this number sequence of this coordinate matches precisely the speed of light traveling through space measured in meters per second. This is fantastic stuff. Considering the vast amount of information about the Earth encoded into the Great Pyramid, you can't dismiss all of this as pure coincidence. The Valley of the Kings, Egypt. The Taj Mahal, Agra, India, and King Bakal's tomb, Palenque, Mexico. Spectacular burial sites that date back thousands of years are found worldwide. According to mainstream researchers, these locations are the final resting places for ancient leaders, but might they also serve a more profound, perhaps extraterrestrial purpose? Why do we have the most massive of constructions in the far and distant past? Well, according to the ancient texts and ancient traditions, this knowledge was given to our ancestors by the gods. Suppose the sole function of tombs was to house the dead. Why are virtually all of these connected to notions of spiritual energy, images of astronomy, and a strong belief in the existence of other, arguably more spiritual worlds? For cultures, they were doorways opening, stargates opening a gateway to another dimension so the soul can return, though that it is meant because the soul is going to go on a voyage to the afterlife. In the ancient world, there was a view that this life that we have, this physical life, is our opportunity to prepare ourselves for a vast destiny that lies beyond this life. Could ancient tombs have served another, more extraterrestrial purpose? Perhaps as portals to reunite the deceased with celestial beings? Many ancient astronaut theorists believe the answers can be found by taking a closer look at the mysterious texts of ancient Egypt. Saqqara is situated on the west bank of the Nile River, 20 miles south of Cairo. This archaeological site is one of Egypt's oldest and most significant burial grounds. Overlooking the immense necropolis lies the pyramid of King Teti, the first ruler of Egypt's 6th dynasty. Teti built his pyramid and an adjoining mortuary temple during his reign more than 4,000 years ago. Now, this pyramid is significant. It contains the oldest religious writing in the world, the pyramid texts. According to archaeologists, the pyramid texts are a collection of ancient Egyptian sacred essays that date back to 2400 BC. They contain passages about Osiris, the Egyptian god of the afterlife, and descriptions of how to prepare the pharaoh's remains during his ascent to the heavens after death. But according to ancient astronaut theorists, the pyramid texts not only guided the pharaoh to an afterlife, they provided instruction on how the pharaoh could travel to other worlds. What is important to realize is that the ancient Egyptians say that about 25,000 years ago, the gods lived amongst them, then they disappeared. Again, what the pyramidex are saying is that we, the ancient Egyptians, specifically, of course, can reach the gods again. We have to die for this, but once we're dead, we can join the gods again. We're talking about some other dimensional travel for the soul to undertake. Delta Egypt. A small centimeter-wide trail is cut into the desert floor by the rolling cocoon of a dung beetle. This strange-looking, 2-inch-long insect, also called a scarab, uses the dung as the source of nourishment and a place for storing its eggs. It will roll the ball in a straight line despite all obstacles and is the only insect on Earth to navigate by following the light of the Milky Way galaxy. Biologists made this discovery in 2013. But 5,000 years ago, with presumably no knowledge of its unique connection to the stars, the ancient Egyptians held the scarab as a sacred symbol representing a link to the gods. Interesting that a great civilization could pay so much attention to a little bug, but it constantly appears throughout Egyptian temples and hieroglyphics. It's a frequent image at the Temple of Karnak, overlooking the sacred lake where the pharaohs received their coronation. A giant scarab beetle stands watch, representing the Egyptian god Khepri. The Egyptians saw the sun moving across the sky during the day and around the desert sands. You'd see beetles moving dung balls, so the Egyptians thought the force that drove the sun across the sky was a giant scarab beetle god named Jeffrey. They believed that the sun was what is known as the Eye of Ra, which was Ra's chariot or his flying machine, and the thing that moved it, they believed, was the scarab-headed god Khepri. The scarab represented Khepri, the pilot, if you like, of Ra's sunship or barge. They were the pilot and the gods. But could there be another explanation for why the Egyptians regarded Khepri as a pilot? Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that the representation of Khepri as a scarab, and sometimes as a human with a scarab head, may have been inspired by actual contact the Egyptians had with otherworldly beings. One has to wonder whether or not these beings existed because the ancient Egyptians were incredibly proud of carving their history into countless walls. According to the old astronaut theory, we all came about through a deliberate mutation of our genes. So, some of those creatures depicted in reliefs and carvings might have existed in the past. Could the ancient Egyptians have encountered alien beings that had an insect-like appearance? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and further evidence points to the Egyptians' obsession with the scarab also extended to their funerary rituals. Abydos, Egypt, 7 miles west of the Nile. Within this expansive archaeological site lie the ruins of the Osiris Hall, where thousands would gather to worship the god of the underworld. Compared to many gods, Osiris was thought to have lived physically on Earth as one of Egypt's pharaohs. He is often depicted with a winged disk of the sun. And while many scholars have suggested that this is nothing else but worshipping the sun, that sun, as far as the Egyptians were concerned, also had wings and came from the center of the sky. So, the connection is profound. Something else was depicted, an extraterrestrial event in real life. Although most ancient astronaut theorists believe that the Egyptian gods were, in reality, extraterrestrial visitors, many wonder if Osiris was even made of flesh and blood. The most famous stories that go hand in hand with Osiris are those of his dismemberment by his jealous brother Seth. Seth was furious and tore his brother's lifeless body into 14 pieces. However, Isis, the loyal wife, searched far and wide and found the pieces. She pulled them together, succeeding in resurrecting him. Now, when I hear a story like that, where a being is dismembered, and someone puts those pieces back together, magically restoring them, I have to ask, is it possible that Osiris was not a biological entity but a machine or a robot? For ancient astronaut theorists, the most robust evidence suggesting that Osiris may have been a robot can be found in the old pyramid texts, which describe the symbol of the Djed pillar as Osiris's spine. Osiris was portrayed as a pillar strikingly resembling a modern-day Tesla coil in his resurrected form. The Djed pillar was considered a power pillar. In one carving at Abydos, it appears that Isis has her hand inserted into Osiris's back, perhaps illustrating how she was manipulating Osiris. Could the story of Osiris be entirely different from what we have thought? Could our ancestors have encountered highly sophisticated extraterrestrial robots in the ancient past? And if so, might there be tangible evidence? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes.